Well, for this week's YouTube chat, we're going to look at the much coveted Irish Shield, with Leinster kicking off our quest for a fourth victory in a row next weekend at Croke Park. Now, just to be clear, if I thought it would work in a podcast, I would have said that last bit with my tongue actually in my cheek, so you know I wasn't 100% serious. But what we're actually going to do is have a quick look at the other provinces from a Leinster point of view and see how they're shaping up this season so far. Starting with Kieran, who's going to harp on Connacht.
Yeah, the big Irish Shield. I will say I'm glad they changed the format of the Shields from the first two seasons and made it so the Irish Shield just counts the Interpros, because I think it actually does have a little more meaning than just saying which Irish team finished higher in the table. And yeah, looking for a fourth in a row. It's going to be great. But Connacht, I think they against Munster, I think they'll probably be disappointed, but probably shot themselves in the foot. Against Sharks, they had a great comeback and will be really delighted with that. And against Scarlets, they survived. So it's very hard to know what to think about their season so far, because in fairness, I think they just, I was saying in the Harpin group chat, I think on paper this Connacht team is probably a little bit better than the team that won the league in 2016. The problem for that is all the other teams have improved. I mean, Leinster are much better, Munster are much better, Ulster are better, and at the same time, there's four South African teams that can put it up to them. There's Glasgow are probably better. I mean, there's the title contenders are better, so it's not really on anymore for a team to pull out a miracle win. But an issue for them is they don't really have that squad depth. I think that's something that's long been an issue for them. I think Connacht are probably a bit unfortunate in the way, possibly slight tangent here, but Leinster, we know they have the most population. There's always talk about should other provinces be able to get their players. I don't think any other province should be allowed cherry pick players from Leinster. I don't think that's fair. That means you're suffering from having a good academy. But if there are players not playing at Leinster and other provinces need a position, there should be a conversation about having those players move to another province. Crucially, that can't be against the player's will. And crucially, I don't think Leinster should be responsible for making the other three provinces into the best province in the tournament or anything, just to fill in gaps where they need it. I think Connacht don't always get a fair share of when talent's being spread around. They kind of just tend to get enough players to make up the numbers more than anything else. So I think they have the lowest population, so they should probably be more favoured in the way those transfers are viewed. I mean, they should probably their squad numbers need a little bit of a boost, but yeah, they've been inconsistent so far. I think it's fair to say Scarlets, they nearly let that one go, and that's a game. If they want to be competing, if they want to make the playoffs, they probably have to be beating teams like Scarlets. They probably have to be winning those games. But yeah, they've been a strange team to watch. They've been a very entertaining team to watch because their games have all been entertaining. There's been one or two scores in all their games so far. So it just has been kind of inconsistent, I think is the word that you'd really go with. You'd wonder if they're gonna be able to pull things together there's one game during the November internationals. There's a couple of games during the Six Nations. Are they going to really suffer there when Bundy Aki, Mac Hansen, Finlay Beelan, when they're gone? Maybe a couple of others are gone. But yeah, look, they've certainly been an entertaining team to watch. I think they need to improve. I mean, it's a strange one. They left one out there against Munster, had a miraculous comeback against Sharks, and then somehow just about survived Scarlet. So in fairness, they'll probably be happy with where they are on the table. I think they're capable of competing for the top 8. I think it's a good thing for Irish rugby. There's obviously provincial rivalries. We need 4 provinces competing. We don't have a big enough we don't have a big enough rugby population to have just 1 or 2 provinces doing well. So we need Munster. Obviously, we want Leinster to win everything. We need Munster, Ulster, and Connacht to also be competitive in the URC and in Europe and do decent. Connacht, you'd be looking at them thinking they could go on a run in the Challenge Cup maybe, but with performances like that, it's probably going to be it could be another season of they could have done better there. That could have maybe another false dawn. So yeah, it's been a really inconsistent start to the season for them. I hope for their sake they start to get things into gear a bit more. But at the same time, sometimes you win a bit ugly. I mean, Leinster won a bit ugly by a bigger scoreline on the weekend, and that's what they did against Scarlets. And a couple of seasons ago, they might have lost that game. So I think the fact that they're getting wins, they're picking up points. I think that's something. They've gotten points from each of their games. I think they got 2 points against Munster. They got their 5 points against Sharks, and now they got their 4 against Scarlet. So in fairness, they put themselves in a decent position. But yeah, I think it's really important for us to have a competitive. We can't have any more of this. There's Leinster, Munster, and Ulster, and the other province there that kind of is also in the league. We can't have that. That was the way it was for a while during the Rabo Direct Pro era, during the kind of pro random number era of the league. We need Connacht to be a competitive side. So, in fairness, it's good for us that they're getting wins, but yeah, I wouldn't know what to expect from them next week, to be honest, just because they've been so inconsistent, so up and down. They were the better team against Scarlets, but nearly lost the game. They probably should have lost the game against Sharks, and they won the game. They probably should have. They could have won the game against Munster, and they lost the game. So it's just hard to know what to expect. But sometimes I think Connacht, they're prone to leaving things out there, and I think that's the main thing for them, not to die wondering this season, not to leave points on the table, to perform well in every game, because when they lose big players, they're not going to be as effective. So yeah, inconsistent, but very entertaining start from Connacht Rugby.
Absolutely. Well, it's my job to harp on the Ulstermen. And, well, in general, what I'd like to say about them is that I think they're a team who have been very unfortunate with injuries, are now in something of a transition phase, but definitely have some quality players coming through the ranks. The only thing about that is that you could have arguably said that about them pretty much every season for the past decade or so. Their last campaign was a classic example when, despite doing the double over Leinster, not only did they not win the Irish Shield, Leinster somehow did. But despite only coming back from their early season South African tour with just the one losing bonus point and shipping 12 tries in the process, there has to be a genuine cause for optimism up north with Richie Murphy at the helm. We already started to see signs of a revival towards the end of last season after things were clearly not right under the previous regime, both on and off the pitch. And on the opening weekend of the 24-25 URC, a late Dave Shanahan try earned a home win over the champions Glasgow. And as well as the new coaching staff to bet in, there are a lot of new players at the Kingspan, like out half Aidan Morgan, winger Werner Koch, and some great talent currently scoring tries for emerging Ireland, like Zach Ward and Jude Postlethwaite. So you have to assume that when they start to click with the Hendersons, Herrings, and Stockdales, things can really start to take off. They didn't exactly have the luck of the draw in the Champions Cup, ending up with both of last season's top 14 finalists in their pool. But you'd still be hard-pressed to rule them out of contention from making the knockout stages, and even further if Murphy can get the same kind of tune out of the squad as he did with the Irish under-20s. Okay, well, having drawn the short straw, it's Tom who gets to harp on our good friends to the south, and I see he's just by total coincidence happens to have a background on his Zoom there. that just popped up. You have no idea where that came from.
No, it's just default. You know, these random.
Yeah. That's one of these things. Yeah.
Yeah, Munster. Look, I won't harp on Munster for too long. Just 2 points from Munster's season, I'd say so far. First, and bringing it back to what Kieran said in the Connacht game, I think Munster would be delighted sort of get out of jail in that game. Consistency has been a bit of an issue over the first 3 games. Obviously, the Zebra game was the main talking point of last week. Zebra then followed up the next week by getting a 30-point hammer on at home. Doesn't shed any better light on Munster's loss out there. Look, it's no coincidence that Munster's best performance of the weekend was yesterday when Tadhg Byrne, Peter O'Mahony, and Jack Crowley came back. Munster's real concern, really, or Munster supporters' real concern, is the drop off when those guys aren't around, and losing players like Snyman and Anton Frisch has sort of weakened sort of the backups, for want of a better word, even though these guys were starters when they were available. But when the main 3 Irish guys, Crowley, Byrne, and Peter, are not there, just the fall off players like Niall Scannell, who've been there a long time, or the Wycherleys and stuff. Coombs as well, to a degree. He's a great man 5 meters out, but just his work rate in general play is maybe the reason why he's not in the Irish setup as much as people think. Deadly from 5 out, but just work rate around the pitch just for me isn't there what it should be. But that aside, look, I think that's a real concern that the drop off when those leaders are not there. And the second point, obviously, is just this ongoing issue with Munster's injury list. Uh, I don't know how many seasons in a row now we're talking about Munster's injuries, but a caption came up after the game against the Ospreys, and I think it's 18 players are now injured or doubtful for the Leinster game. Somebody like maybe Alex Nankivell might be back in, and Munster supporters will be praying he's back in. But they're really short now in the back three. Pat Campbell's been out with injury. Mike Haley, the new signing Tucker Abrahams is out. Shane Daly's got an injury. And obviously Peter O'Mahony and Ollie Yeager went off early this weekend. But it just seems to be season after season that Munster's injury list always seems to be at crisis point. Look, I'm not going to sit here and start mentioning, the how good or bad Munster's strength and conditioning program is, and all the mobility fitness they do, because I don't want me mentions on Twitter getting blown up for the week that's leading up to Croke Park. But look, somebody has to look at it. It can't be a coincidence at this stage, just the amount of injuries, and luck doesn't come into it. Looking is an excuse for not looking at the real reason why or what's going on. You just can't continuously have bad luck, or as they say down south, it's time for another mass. When they're hoping for players. So all this week will be about who Munster can get on the pitch against us, and then the overarching problem that they have for the season is just the fall off when the main guys aren't there. I know they pulled it out of the bag the season before last with a great run, but that's when they had all those key players available after the Six Nations. Tyburn, O'Mahony, Murray, Crowley, Snyman was there. All had an effect on that really good run that they had in the URC to win it down in Cape Town. But the season leading up to that point was fairly inconsistent, and we've seen a mirror of it in the first three games. Granted, they'll be delighted to get the Zebra loss out of their way, because looking at the biblical conditions, it was in Cork for kickoff against the Ospreys. I jokingly said 3-0 would be a good result down there. And to get the bonus point win was fair going, but Tyburn, maybe outside Gibson Park, is probably the foreign player in Ireland and probably the most important provincial player in the country, because when he's not there for Munster, Munster are a different team. He just brings Munster up several levels. He's that good of a player and playing that well, and that's great that Munster have him. But it's not a good place to be, that they're dependent on somebody like that to impact their forward players, especially as much as he does. And obviously Crowley is a big upgrade on Billy Burns as well, or any other option that they have at 10. Young Butler, he's getting a few chances. But yeah, so injuries, who's available for next week, we don't know. Look, we're waiting for the Munster team on Thursday or Friday, whenever it comes out. And then just some of the senior players that are there for a long time, Archers and Scannells and stuff, just not stepping up with the leadership. The tries they gave away against Zebra was fairly soft and fairly weak, and those guys that have got, maybe, I don't know how many, Archers obviously well into the 200s with appearance for Munster, and Scannell is way up. They need to be leading from the front when Peter O'Mahony and Tyburn is not available for whatever reason, and too often they've not. So yeah, that's interesting times for Munster.